Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for our COVID-19 vaccine town hall update. I'm Gretchen. I'm the Associate Executive Director at the now Western Carolinas Charlotte office. So we are excited to have you, and we have our stellar care team from Atrium Health Levine's Children's Hospital here to give us some more information. So I will go ahead and introduce Dr. Shellhouse to take it away.
Hi, good evening. Hope everybody has enjoyed today's weather, and I'm glad we're not in Texas. We not only have the pediatric program online, but we also have our adult colleagues, Dr. Howard and Dr. Coggins. So we're very happy to have them with us because I'm not going to be able to answer the adult directed questions. But let's start. We're going to talk about the COVID-19 vaccine. That should be vaccines because now there may be three. So if we could advance the slides. So we have a few things we'll go over. We'll talk about COVID-19 and CF. We'll talk about vaccines that are currently available. We'll talk about things that you want to know about the vaccine, how to get a vaccine, and some help that you may be able to get from the foundation, and then open it up to questions. And by the way, that's me getting my first vaccine. If you haven't seen that picture, and if you don't know who I am, so that's what I look like with a mask on. It was a great experience, and I was very happy to have it. So next slide, please. Well, COVID-19 and CF, and this data is fairly recent. It's within the last week. So there have been 1,166 individuals with CF who have had COVID-19. That's about 4% of the CF population and about half the infection rate of the general population. And I don't think we have to speculate very much on why CF patients have a lower infection rate than the general population. You all are already used to wearing masks, keeping physical distance, doing hand hygiene. It's part of your routine. So continue to do a great job. The numbers bear it out. Of those 1,166, 832 were adults. There were 146 hospitalizations of adults, which is about 17.5% of adult cases. And unfortunately and regrettably, there have been 7 deaths, 2 with advanced lung disease, 4 post-transplant, and 1 who had other risk factors. There have been 335 kids with COVID-19, with 34 hospitalizations, which represents about 10% of cases. And as far as I know, there are no reported deaths of children. Next slide. So current vaccines, there are 2 that are currently approved by the FDA under emergency use authorization after clinical trials that involved more than 30,000 people for each vaccine. So even though it was emergency use authorization, there was quite a large group of people that were studied to put this forward for FDA approval. Well, how do messenger RNA vaccines, which is what Pfizer and Moderna vaccines are, work? Well, messenger RNA is created from the virus. A snippet of it is taken out that codes for the spike protein. Actually, they don't even need to use the virus. They just need to know what the virus instructions are and create the messenger RNA needed. So that's basically what was done. That messenger RNA is then put into a lipid capsule, and that makes up the shot. Once you receive the shot, your cells take up the messenger RNA, and based on those coding instructions, they make spike protein. These are mostly immune cells or lymph nodes that take up the messenger RNA, and they begin to churn out spike protein. Other immune cells come along and see the spike protein and say, hey, this is not normal. They make antibodies to it. And some of types of immune cells develop memory so that if you're infected in the future, you will make antibodies and develop an immune response to the virus, hopefully eliminating the virus from your system. Both the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines work in this manner. There's slight differences. The Pfizer was looked at, the population looked at was down to 16 years of age. The Moderna was looked at in people down to 18 years of age. And both vaccines are highly efficacious and effective. So what does that mean? Well, efficacy is defined as a percent reduction of disease in vaccinated group compared to an unvaccinated group under ideal conditions. So these people were carefully selected. They were given vaccine or placebo, and then they were observed to see who developed infection. And it was done under relatively controlled circumstances. Effectiveness actually looks at the real world ability of the vaccine to prevent whatever outcome of interest you're looking for. So in most cases, when people talk about effectiveness of these vaccines, they're talking about prevention of severe infection, which is usually defined as needing oxygen, hospitalization, or death. So when we talk about effectiveness, we're talking about a 95% reduction in severe infection. Next slide. The other vaccine, which is very close to being approved, is the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. And it is based on DNA. And basically, you take a weakened cold virus, adenovirus, and you take out all of the DNA except for the DNA that codes for the spike protein. You put that into the adenovirus shell, and you inject that into the host, into you. The adenovirus cannot reproduce itself, but the DNA is taken up and it makes the COVID spike protein. Again, your body recognizes that spike protein as abnormal, and you make antibodies to it, and you develop immune memory, excuse me, so that if you're infected with COVID-19, that immune memory kicks in, you make antibodies, and you have a response and hopefully eliminate the COVID-19 virus. It is approved. It will be approved, I think, in the next week. The FDA has said that it should be approved, so that should happen in the next week, I think. It will be for 18 years and older. It has about a 70% efficacy. The effectiveness is not really yet known, although it is thought that it may be as high as 90-95% in preventing severe disease. And there's a reference that you can look up to see more about the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Next slide. Okay, there we go. Well, 3 vaccines, that's great. 3 vaccines in just over a year. That really is amazing. It's really not been done before. So that's a big weapon in the tool chest to fight COVID-19. And so we as a CF Center and the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation are strongly recommending that people with CF and their caregivers, and actually everybody, receive vaccination. Now, one of the problems is that children have not been included in clinical trials. And so there is a clinical trial right now ongoing for 12 to 17-year-old children. Those results, I hope, will be out by the summer. And hopefully 12 to 17-year-old children may be able to be vaccinated starting maybe before school starts or right around the time school starts. Don't know yet, more to come. Other question comes up, well, what vaccine should I get? And the answer to that is whichever one is available to you. If you're eligible, you're called up to get it, you're in line, you've been called to be in line, go get the vaccine. And it really doesn't matter which one. They're all, the two messenger RNA vaccines are highly effective, and it looks like the data suggests that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is also highly effective. These vaccines are actually more effective than the flu vaccine. They're not quite as effective as our best vaccine, which is the measles, mumps, rubella vaccine, but they're pretty darn good. You should be able to get the vaccine at no cost, although you might be charged for vaccine administration. I don't think that's happening at these big events. But if you go to eventually to Walmart or CVS or somewhere like that, you might have a nominal vaccine administration charge. If you've had COVID-19, you should get the vaccine. You need to wait 30 days after your infection is pretty much over. But once your infection is over, once you're probably 10 to 14 days out from infection, you can count out 30 more days and you can get the vaccine. The good news is you cannot get COVID-19 from the vaccination. As we talked about, the only thing that your body makes from the vaccine is a spike protein. You develop antibodies to that spike protein and you don't make it anymore. You have the antibodies and immune memory to wait till the next time, till you see COVID-19. And then you have an immune response that should prevent you from having severe illness. There are some myths out there. I want to put most of those to rest. I don't know all the myths, but the few that are more common is the vaccine does not affect your fertility. There are no microchips in the vaccine. This is not an experiment. The messenger RNA technology has been available and looked at for over 20 years, and the DNA adenoviral vaccines have also been looked at for about that long. So this is not new. The other thing is it cannot change your DNA. So it won't change your genetic code. There may be other myths out there. I would take each one that you hear with a grain of salt and go to reliable sources to find out more about the vaccines if you're interested. Now, well, what happens after you get a vaccine? Can you go out and party? Go to the bars, go out to the restaurants, go to the movie theater. Well, as the governor directs us, we can do those things, but you still need to wear a mask. You still need to practice physical distancing, and you still need to perform good hygiene. We will be doing this for a while. I hope not as long as Dr. Fauci thinks we're going to be doing it into 2022. I really hope if we can get the infection rate down and have 60 to 75% of the population vaccinated, that will stop transmission. There is data from Israel, early data. Israel's a small country. They have vaccinated most of their population. That even right now, within a few weeks or a month or so of having vaccine, they've decreased transmission rate by 50%, and that should only improve over time. So I do think that this is beatable, but for a little while, we're going to be doing the mask and physical distancing and hand hygiene. Next slide. Okay. One disadvantage of the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines is you need 2 injections. The Pfizer is 3 weeks apart, Moderna is 4 weeks apart. So that's 2 different times in your schedule, two half days or so to go get a vaccine. The advantage of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is you only need 1 injection. So some people may say, hey, I only want to go once, get this over and done with. Some people may want to get the Pfizer and Moderna. But the problem right now is there's not enough vaccine for you to be able to choose. So whichever vaccine is available where you go to get it is the one you should get. There are side effects. Most of them are mild. Pain at the injection site, swollen lymph nodes, fatigue, muscle aches, chills, fevers, nausea, vomiting, fairly common. I had a pretty good muscle ache uh, on my upper arm and upper chest, and that resolved after 24 hours. The second shot, I had the same. It was a little bit more intense. I needed to take some ibuprofen, and that went away. Some other people have had more GI problems, and they've lasted for 24 hours. And so everybody's a little bit different how they react. But for the vast majority of people, side effects have been mild. There are some very rare allergic reactions. So the non-severe allergic reactions include hives, swelling, and wheezing, and they occur in about 44 cases out of 1 million doses. If you have an allergic reaction, you should not get the second vaccine. There's been a few reports of severe allergic reactions, 11 cases per million doses. And those people have had what we call anaphylaxis, which is like a full body, throat swelling, difficulty breathing reaction. And those people need immediate treatment. That's why you're asked to stay 15 or 20 minutes after the vaccine so you can be observed and hopefully not have this reaction. But if you did have it, then you would be there for immediate treatment. The vaccine, there's been over 50 million vaccines given across the world. Not sure of the number in the United States right now. It seems like we're approaching 30 million maybe. And obviously, after people get a vaccine, we're observing them for a while. We're asking people to report back what happens. And there have been some reports of deaths that have happened after people have gotten the vaccine. Each one of those deaths has been carefully investigated. It amounts to a few hundred people. And none of those deaths have been attributed to the vaccine. So I think at this point, we can't say any of the deaths are due to the vaccine itself, and there seem to be due to other causes than the vaccine. Remember that it takes 2 to 4 weeks for you to be immune after you're vaccinated. So you've got a window there that you could still be infected and still get fairly sick. So people are talking about by the time you're 2 weeks out, you probably have about 50 to 60% protection. And by the time you're 4 weeks out with the first dose of the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, you have 80 to 85% protection. So that's pretty good. But again, there is a window where you could be infected and not be protected. So you need to continue to do the things you know to do, wearing a mask, physically distancing, isolating yourself while you're waiting for that immunity to kick in. Next slide. Okay, there's been a lot of news recently about SARS-CoV-2 variants. Well, what is SARS-CoV-2? Well, that actually is the name of the virus. COVID-19 is actually the name of the disease that the virus causes. We use the terms interchangeably. But if you're being precise, then SARS-CoV-2 is the name of the virus. And so it is SARS-CoV-2 variants that we're going to talk about. Variants are natural occurrences in viruses. They involve mutations. In this case, SARS is an RNA virus in the virus RNA. And as there are more infections, there are going to be more mutations. So that is the big concern right now, is that we've had this big spike in number of infections. And because of the big spike in number of infections, we are seeing variants appear. And those variants are concerning because most of them are probably going to make the virus more infective. That is, it's going to be easier to catch it, or it's potentially going to cause more severe illness, or both. Now, you've probably been hearing of 3 variants. There are actually 4. So they're named here. I'm not going to go over each one. One was first found in the UK, United Kingdom. The other was first found in South Africa. And the others have been found in Brazil and most recently in California. These are going to continue. And right now, it appears that the current vaccines do provide some protection against the variants. the effectiveness still seems to be good. That is protection against severe disease. But if these variants become more widespread, or there are more mutations that make the SARS-CoV-2 more infectious, then the vaccines can be reformulated in the future. And there's already some discussion about maybe we're going to need to take another vaccine in the fall or winter against these particular variants. So more to come on that. This may become more like flu, where we need a vaccine every year or so to keep us from getting COVID-19. Next slide. Okay, well, how do you get a vaccine? Well, in North Carolina has decided that there are 4 groups of people, actually 5 groups if you include everybody else. And these 4 groups of people are the ones that are, well, group 1, 2, and 3 are now open to receive vaccination. Group 4 is next, and that includes cystic fibrosis patients. And then group 5 is everybody else. I suspect group 3 just opened just recently, and group 4 probably will open as more vaccine becomes available. My expectation is maybe by April, you'll be able to get the vaccines for people with CF. How do you do that? Well, you can sign up at Find My Vaccine group at northcarolina.gov. You can sign up through my Atrium. And if you're a caregiver of a medically fragile patient, you can get a vaccine now. You go to my Atrium and you sign up. Medically fragile patients include cystic fibrosis patients. So parents, caregivers, please sign up and get a vaccine. Next slide. In South Carolina, there are 4 groups of people. 1A, 1B, and 1C, and then everybody else. So right now, 1A and 1B are being vaccinated in South Carolina. I believe they're starting on other 1C soon. 1C includes people with CF. And the way that you sign up is you make an appointment at an appropriate location throughout the state of South Carolina. And the way you do that is you call this phone number and find out where that is and how to do it. Caregivers of medically fragile patients can get the vaccine now with a letter from a physician. So we are providing those letters in the pediatric CF Center. I'm sure that Dr. Coggins and Dr. Howard would be happy to provide them to caregivers of adult CF patients. And basically, you go to my Atrium, you sign up, or you call the number there, and you present your letter and say, I'm a caregiver, I would like a vaccine. So please, if you're a caregiver, sign up now so that you can get your COVID-19 vaccine. Next slide. The foundation and your center continue to strongly encourage people with CF and their caregivers to get a vaccine. I hope that's come across while I've been talking. We really want you to be vaccinated. This is a safe vaccine. I think all of us in the CF Center, almost all of us have had a vaccine, and we really think you should get it too. The COVID-19 is a severe disease. Our adult colleagues know that better than we do in pediatrics, but we have had very sick children in the ICU with COVID-19. We do not want to see any CF patients in the hospital or in the ICU with this disease. So please be vaccinated. If you need, you can find more information at the CF Foundation website. You can look at the CDC website, and you can get more information there also. And if you're not watching the news, you're probably missing out on things, but almost every day on the major news networks, there is something about COVID-19. And the major The Charlotte Observer has something in it every day. So you can find out about this in a variety of ways. If you need additional patient assistance, you can contact your social worker, or if the social worker, this is more of insurance, legal type issue, you can contact Compass. You should be able to get help if you need that to get a vaccine. Next slide. Questions? The floor is open.
Hi, Dr. Shahaz, it's Gretchen. I do not see any questions in the chat actually that we haven't been able to answer on the fly. So really appreciate Dr. Howard and Dr. Coggins and Shelley for chiming in to help answer those. Does anybody else have any questions? If so, you can put them right in the chat and we will make sure that we get you an answer.
And I think this is going to be on the Charlotte Family Advisory Board website, the charlottefamilies.org. So you can go there and tell all your friends that they want to hear about COVID-19, and there's a talk there for them to listen to.
Yes, and Beth just sent me the link, so I'm going to send the link to everybody as well. I do see one question. You mentioned caregivers need a letter when they get their vaccine. How do they?
Okay, so only caregivers in South Carolina. So caregivers in North Carolina, it's based on your word of honor. It's an honor system. So you sign up for one of the mass events at the racetrack or at the stadium, or sign up through my Atrium. And in North Carolina, you should be able to get a vaccine. I wish we were giving them in clinic. We just are not set up to do that. When they do become available at the various pharmacies, I think you'll just have to go say, I'm a caregiver of a medically fragile patient and I'd like a vaccine. In South Carolina, they are requiring you to have a letter. You can get those from us. You can ask our social workers, you can ask your physicians when you're in clinic, you can ask your program coordinators, we can get you a letter. We're happy to do that.
Thank you. That's great to know. I have another question. David, we hear correctly that kids under 12 won't be able to access a vaccine for a while.
Unfortunately, that's true. The clinical trials are ongoing right now. They're not going to have to enroll as many kids as they did adults, but they do need to observe these kids for a few months, 2 or 3 months, to make sure the vaccine's safe in this population. And once that's determined, then it'll go through the approval process the other vaccines have gone through. So again, I am hoping that data is available by sometime in the early summer. The FDA will review it, and I'm hoping that there will be approval before school starts.
Right, great to know. And then just had a note come in from Dr. Howard. Please consider enrolling in the Atrium Health COVID-19 Community Research Partnership, and now offers monthly antibody testing to all participants. So
great thing to know.
What other questions do you all have? Well, I don't see anything else coming through in the chat, but very much appreciate your time, and thank you everybody for being here. Dr. Shahaz, do you want to close us out?
Well, I'm really very optimistic at this point. I think that the numbers are coming down. They're not quite where they need to be, so we still need to be cautious. But with more vaccine available and us still being cautious, I think that maybe by the summertime we'll be a little bit more normal. It won't be quite normal, but maybe we'll be getting close to that. And then maybe by the fall, with more people vaccinated, maybe you'll be able to get together with your loved ones and have a small holiday gathering. I hope so. That's really what we would like, is to be able to get together with others I think if you're vaccinated and the infection rates continue to go down, that's a possibility, and that's what we're looking for. So please, please get a vaccination. Well, thank you,
Great.
everybody. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us, everyone. If you have additional questions, I dropped our email address in the chat. We appreciate it.